Hey, okay, so I've had the Nirvana F-Light for about a week now, and I've had 3 or 4 flights on it. I've got a bunch of questions about the setup, how it flies, what the harness feels like, how I configured it, etc. So I'm gonna walk through some of it today and show you where I have my hang points set, what to expect in setup, and some of the things that I've noticed while flying. All right, so first things first, just let me unbuckle this stuff here real quick. The one thing that stood out right away during setup was how far back I was leaned, and it was really awkward at first. It took me quite a bit to get used to in the hang check. It was really unexpected. So let's walk through a couple of the exact pieces or kind of parts and configuration that got me set while flying. So the arm itself, I actually tried to move this back so it was connected here and here on the hang arm because I was so concerned with how far I was leaning back. And ultimately that ended up being wrong. Having it set at the 180 to 130 range with the carabiner where it ended up being the best hang point for me. The other thing that really kind of changed the way the whole machine flies was the amount of tension that you have on the arm itself. So the further you pull this back, the more you're gonna lean, and the longer you let it out, the more it will lean you forward. And so I've got about probably, 4 or 5 inches worth of, distance here in this clamp. Same thing on the other side, obviously. Nothing, configuration is the exact same. All right, so walking through some of the other details, really important, what I've found is that the measurements that are on the straps themselves are close. So the recommended setup video gets you really close to being positioned correctly on the straps, etc., like how tight they are. So on the seat plate itself, I ended up having to tighten it a little bit past the white line. And the reason that I ended up doing that is because it keeps the seat plate tight to your bottom while you're running and easier to get into. It also keeps it closer to the back of the gas tank. I've noticed that while I'm running, and if this is too long, that the seat comes out further away from the gas tank versus sitting me back up against it. And then what happens is I end up leaning in kind of a weird direction. So everything in the seat plate and where the harness strap for your legs comes into play should be relatively tight. All right, so you don't want too much play on either side. I'm just gonna connect these and I'll show you. So you'll notice that there's not much play left or right, and it keeps the seat plate sitting nice and close to my butt. All right, the other thing that I've noticed, measurement wise, they did a lot of work in trying to set up the harness so that it was super easy to configure, and they had some preset measurements. What didn't work out really well was this part here. So behind the harness itself, behind the back plate itself on the F-Light is the vertical adjustment for the seat in its entirety. And this seemed to make the most difference for me. I've noticed that as long as I'm sitting comfortably against the gas tank, the vertical height was the most impactful in terms of how I was either leaning forward or leaning backwards in flight. So if I were to take this off, which actually I guess I can do, we'll unscrew it here in a second, but the 2 screws, there's the strap behind it. Having this up higher in vertical height does 2 things. It gets you positioned better in the seat, but it also moves you up higher so that your shoulders are sitting where they should be inside of the harness. So essentially, like, anything loose in this system makes it super weird to fly. So you gotta have everything kind of tight, like even your shoulder straps, etc. The waist strap, everything needs to be positioned correctly on your back and tended to sit up a little bit higher in order for me to get that, I guess, thrust angle that was the best. So give me a second here, I'm gonna grab the drill and we'll unscrew that and I'll show you how I set the back plate up a little. All right, so we're gonna take the back plate off. Comes off super easy with a couple screws. Oh. Cool. So all it holds it on, pretty simple. And then basically just slides off. You got full back plate, it's all carbon. So inside, I'm actually gonna tighten this up just a little bit more because I've got, you know, maybe another inch or ½ inch here that this can come up before it starts affecting how the back plate actually goes on. So the strap itself, you can see I'm well past the recommended height setting. I was actually supposed to be on the red strap, given my height and weight. So I'm about 5'7", 160 pounds, 165 pounds-ish. So this right here, the further I have this moved up, the better I am positioned in the overall kind of back plate of the machine. So I'm gonna set the phone down here for a second and move this up just a little bit more to get that other, you know, inch and a half that I'm looking for. And then hopefully that'll kind of help with, you know, moving it up on my back even just a little bit more. Okay, so I moved it up just a little bit higher. You can see it's almost flush with the gas tank now. And that's literally about as high as you can get it before the back plate will start not fitting in because of the bottom edge here. I guess you could notch that out if necessary, but I don't think it's really all that necessary. So yeah, just in order to make sure everything fits, I'm gonna put this back in the rubber band, and then I'll show you guys the arm straps or shoulder straps here in just a second, some of the stuff I found on that. Okay, rubber band's back on, everything's in there nice and neat, and it's just really a matter of putting the back plate in. So at the top, there's a kind of a metal part that's riveted in, and then that slides into here. Hold everything in place. And then now you can see it fits nice, and we don't have any more of that room that was left there. So the machine's gonna go up about another inch or so on my back, which is perfect. I'm gonna put the screws back in, and we'll walk through the shoulder straps. Okay, both of those are back in. Everything's nice and neat. And again, there's no play here. It's nice and tight up against the back plate. And you know, some of you are probably concerned, like maybe you'll feel this on your back while you're flying, and literally won't even notice it. So it's nice and, you know, flat to the back of the back plate there. Okay, so for the shoulder straps and the waist strap itself. So the 160 is, you know, pretty decent power to weight ratio, and the thing that I've noticed in running with this system for, you know, takeoff and, you know, gassing it pretty hard while you're in the air, having this nice and tight to your waist really seems to help with, you know, keeping you positioned correctly in the harness versus not. And I've noticed that when it's looser, I tend to shift around and I lose some of the ability to control any torque that should show up, you know, like under full throttle, etc. So on the shoulder straps themselves, same thing. You definitely want these kind of nice and tight. This might come down to personal preference, but what I found is that having this machine, you know, correctly positioned on your back and up a little bit higher has really helped with the hang check, as well as the in-flight comfort. You know, you're not keeled backwards or too far forward. You know, having the seat plate nice and tight between the harness and the arms also really helps with takeoff and getting in and out. A couple other details worth speaking to. When you're not flying, it's pretty common on the Nirvanas. Just make sure you unplug the battery. And then as far as the battery itself, it's just a 3-cell lithium ion. It's definitely not a LiPo, so it's a little bit lighter, get a wider voltage range. And then you can actually charge it with pretty much any standard charger. So for example, like I've got the high-tech charger and you know, older, you know, Passport, Dynamite Passport. And this is actually the charger that I use to charge the Nirvana lithium ion battery that it comes with. To show you what it looks like out of the package. This isn't the exact battery, but they're the same cells, you know, so it's just a 3-cell lithium ion pack. Then inside, on the side is the on and off switch. So let's plug it in real quick and I'll show you the display. Cool, so start stop is obviously here. It's turned on right now, so I'm not gonna hit it, but so on and off on the side. And then what you get is this really nice screen. Tells you the battery voltage. I'm actually not sure what these numbers are yet. I haven't read anything about it, but yeah, it's a pretty nice little end gadget. And then that connects with this port right here. And then everything wiring wise that you saw behind the seat was you know, for the starter and the end gadget itself. So yeah, overall, first 3 flights have been awesome. Absolutely love the machine. It's super smooth, and I've noticed that it's even getting smoother as it breaks in. You know, a couple minor adjustments that I had to make on the carb, just getting that dialed in. So the, you know, I guess more or less the atmosphere here is probably different. Like I'm at sea level and maybe they weren't where they initially set it up. So minor 1/16 of a turn. And that's literally all I've done to this machine, aside from the break-in routine, and it's been awesome to fly. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions, let me know. Happy to kind of jump in and help where possible. Thanks, take care.